What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So in today's video, I want to talk about a photo shoot that I did a couple weeks ago. It's a fine art style, and I mainly want to talk about the main look of that shoot, which was this right here. This is a photo that I am really proud of, and I'm really happy with how it came out. This is exactly what we were going for. When we were making it, we really wanted to kind of make like a piece of art that you could like hang up on the wall. That was kind of like the vibe that we wanted, something you could hang. So you could print out and hang it, look at it forever. So that's exactly what we were going for, and that's exactly what we got. So in this video, I really want to talk about this look in general, and mainly this photo, because the raw looks different than this, right? So I kind of want to go over how it was edited to make it look like this, and like why it looks like this, and how we got that artsy kind of like faded look, and I'll show you guys some of like the light. This is really just like a one light setup, so probably gonna be a short video, but let's go ahead and let's just jump right into it. So first things first, huge shout out to Alexandra. Again, this is our second shoot together. She is definitely a absolutely fantastic model, and she definitely deserves recognition. Here's her Instagram tag, make sure you guys go follow her. So like I said earlier, this look was really just one light and a reflector. So you guys can see here on the right, I got a 47-inch deep octa that's double diffused, so it's really soft. I really wanted to get the softest light possible. So all I really did was just kind of made it as close to her as I could get it without, actually being in the frame. And having it diffuse like that, and the fact that it is so big and it is deep, all adds on to it. And I had to get a little bit of light on the front here, so what I did is I just put the reflector here, and that literally just gave us that nice fill, so we were able to actually get the front of her face here, and that was definitely huge. So that's literally just the entire setup, right? So we're just rocking with the one light, the reflector, and then just the white background. So the white background isn't really being illuminated that much, just a little bit. It's kind of feathered on a little bit, just that way it's not, like a weird gray or black or anything. And working with like a big light like this is definitely easier, when you're trying, going for stuff like that. So let's go ahead and let's jump into capture one, and we'll go over my first initial color grade, and then we'll jump into Photoshop, and I'll show you guys exactly how I color graded this for the final image. So here we go, guys. So as you guys can see already, I really didn't make a lot of adjustments right off the bat. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at the raw. So here's the raw, and here's just the capture one edit. So let's jump through some of our basic settings, right? Not sure if that was intentional, but the exposure went down a little bit. So I upped the contrast a little bit just to, kind of give it like a little bit of depth. Really don't want to go, I'm really not a big contrast slider. Kind of, if I want contrast, I'll usually go to the tone curve. It's a little bit more powerful, and you have just way more control over it. Highlights, I came all the way down. Whole thing was just a little too much for me, because I kind of want to get a little darker tones. Shadows went up just a bit, blacks came down. Let's go ahead and let's actually jump to the tone curve here, speaking of. So my RGB, so you can see I pulled down our mid-tones a little bit, and the blacks are actually faded up a little. And if we actually go over to our Luma here, you can actually see that I brought up the blacks enough. So really the only point of that was really just to give it a fade, right? So let's look at the before. So here's the before and the after. One more time. So you guys can see everything's really sharp, it's solid, and then we go through it, it's almost faded a little bit, right? And that was literally the point. Like I said, I wanted to fade it like that, just to make it a little bit more airy and like a little bit, more like that natural light kind of feel. I think that's a great tool or a great, style, to add into this genre. It's definitely wise to do that from time to time. Not every photo you got to do that, because sometimes you lose too much contrast when you do that, so blacks are important. So it's definitely good to control it. If we hop onto the color panel, I actually hit purchase for her tattoo. So for her tattoo, if you look on her shoulder here, if you guys watched my last video, you guys know that I'm not a big fan of greens, right? I just don't think they go with anything, right? So it's my opinion. So this is the original here, and then this is the after with the greens. Just take a look just at the shoulder in itself. literally it's just so much better. You know what I mean? It's still green, but it's a better green, right? I didn't want to change her tattoo, you know what I mean? Because that's like part of her, right? Like, so I typically try not to change like permanent things like that. You know what I mean? Like I've never like photoshopped like someone's tattoos off or anything. That's just not something that I do. Yeah, so that's really the capture one edit, right? So with this, with the greens, I, you know, really just wanted to isolate it, so I really made this nice and tight. Yeah, because it's kind of like in that area, I suppose. Yeah, it wasn't really green, it was like a mix. So brought down the saturation, the lightness, tried to just get a better green here. I didn't actually do anything with the shadows, midtones, or the highlights here. Kind of just left it like as it was. And just as a, because actually, so the thing is that sometimes like I edit these and I don't remember exactly what I've done. And I usually review it before I record these, but sometimes I'm like, oh, let me check because there's probably something I forgot about. That looks like that's the whole thing. And the tint got brought to the green side a little bit, you know, again, with the fine art. Like it's like, I mentioned this a couple of videos ago as well, is that green and yellow and brown were kind of used in like the original like fine art paintings like back in the day. So sometimes it's smart to just, you know, implement those a little bit. Obviously you don't want to copy off someone's color palettes, but if you're trying to give it that look, that's definitely a safe route to go. And yeah, we're in for Calvin Rhett 5083. So it's really not like too crazy of an edit. Like I said, we're really just, you know, wanted to change up the background a little bit, you know what I mean? Because usually like I shoot auto ISO, make fun of me if you want. Since I shoot raw, I can always adjust it later. Like I'm not like tripping about the Kelvin when I'm shooting, you know, because that's something you can fix later. So especially if you shoot Sony, just because like, you know, you have like those really large files, you know, and there's just so much dynamic range. It's fantastic. All right, so let's jump into Photoshop and I'll show you guys the final color grade and how we went from this here to this here. Let's go. All right guys, so the first thing that we're gonna wanna do is that we're gonna grab a textured background, right? So now you can get these things just about anywhere online. You can get, you know, like a textured canvas background. I got mine from like a YouTuber's link, and I use it all the time. So we're gonna load that in, and it's basically just gonna be its own layer. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna flip it. I'm gonna rotate it 90 degrees, and I'm just gonna expand it out. Now, if you look at the actual canvas background, you can see it's like a vignette. So you wanna make sure that the darker points of the vignette are actually on the outskirts of the photo, because otherwise it's gonna look weird, right? So you wanna stretch it out well enough. Go ahead and press enter. Wait for that. And there you go, right? So now what we're gonna do is, actually I think that's a little weird by the looks of it. It looks like it's, there it goes. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna change the blending mode, or sorry, what I was gonna say is that you can change the blending mode to whatever you want. This is kind of the flexibility that you have with this technique, is that on other photos I've used this background, but I've used the hue blending mode, I've used lighten, I've used linear dodge, I think. So, but for this one, we're actually gonna leave it normal, and we're just gonna lower the opacity down to somewhere where you can kind of still get the color around her, but not like, you know, it's not like overwhelming, right? Just gonna do something like that, maybe a little less. Looks pretty solid. So now at this point, you guys look, you guys can see that we have all these threads. Like we actually have the threads of the canvas in places where like we just don't want it, don't need it, because it's, you know, it's taking away detail and adding in its own detail, and that's just not what we want. Like we really just, I just want the background for the color, right? If you want that, you know, if you're using this technique for something that you're working on, totally up to you. However, if you don't want it, this is what you can do. We're gonna go ahead and go to filter. We're gonna go to blur, and Gaussian blur, and you can basically decide how much of it you want gone, right? So at this point, we're just looking at the threads. So you go to 0, you can fully see the threads. And just kind of bring it to like wherever you want. I like to bring it to where you can't see the threads at all. So that way, like, we're only getting the color out of this layer. So I'll go 20 something, like 23.5. Looks pretty solid. Go ahead and hit OK. That's actually gonna turn this layer into a smart filter just fine. So now at this point, we're looking pretty good. One of the gripes that I have here is that we're kind of getting this discoloration on her face and on her hair and on the butterflies and stuff like that. So we're getting a mix of colors that we don't want in those particular places. So let's go ahead and let's fix it. So I'm gonna add a new layer mask to the actual canvas layer. Not this, because if you try to use the smart filters, it's gonna erase the Gaussian blur, right? And then you'll just get the threads back. So we're gonna go ahead and grab our brush. We have a black brush with, obviously with the white as the background. So, and I'm gonna, I'd say 10 is a fine flow. Now at this point, I'm just gonna start to take it off of her face and her hair. So that way we can maintain that focus and maintain that detail, right? It just makes her hair stand out more. That's one thing about, actually, I'm pretty sure I shot this at a pretty high f-stop, right? Because we needed the focus to be from her hair and her face, right? If you know what I mean? Like, this isn't one of those photos where you can shoot at like f like 1.8, because either her face won't be in focus or the butterflies won't be in focus. So you have to raise up your f-stop. So I'm not gonna go too nitpicky here because this is mainly just a demonstration, and this isn't like the final shot. That's already been processed. So I think that's good for this example. Looks pretty solid. Before and after right there, good. Maybe a little bit right here. Back here, okay. Now I'm just gonna go to curves. I'm gonna just bring this up a little bit, and I'm gonna mess with these blacks, bring them down a touch. Really simple, really subtle stuff, right? Now for the, no, sorry, not for the final thing. Actually, I still have a gradient map. So we're gonna add a gradient map, a gray gradient map for this look. So on this, what I like to do is add like a gray kind of fade to it. And a gradient map is a perfect thing to do that with. So if we go to gradient map and we go to our grays, you have all these different colors. Gradient maps are a real fantastic tool that I haven't started using until recently. So go ahead and grab our gray, hit okay. And again with opacity, opacity is really just it's such a powerful tool here. Go ahead and bring it down. Don't need a lot. I'd say somewhere around 10 or 12%. Yeah, I'd say 12. And then before and after on that. See that? We just get that nice fade. You know, it just really creates that vision of like just natural light. You know what I mean? Like it almost feels like, you know, like faded light coming from a window, and that's exactly what we wanted. So now for the final color grade of this, I'm going to go to our channel mixer here. I'm gonna check our first option, black and white, for red, and then go to layers, and then we're just gonna go to lighten. Boom. So basically what that did is that it took away some of the weird greens and kind of added in more of a magenta-ish color, and it also changed her tattoo a little bit with that green. So let's do the before and the after. Do it one more time. Before and the after. You can even see it in the butterfly. Let me show that. It's that the orange, and then it kind of gets more like that pinkish color. And everything blends together really, really well. Like it's really important to make sure that your color palettes are harmonizing with each other, right? Like, you know, for example, if you're shooting outside, you don't want to have a model in like a purple dress and like a green field. You know what I mean? That just doesn't make any sense, right? It's like, you know what I mean? So like, if that's what you're going for, it's fine. But you know, like having colors harmonized is really just the difference between a good photo and a great photo. It's huge. So that's really the whole color grade on Photoshop too. So now on my actual image that I finished earlier this week and I posted on my Instagram, I actually got rid of like stuff like this, like the little wing here, because you can't, from this perspective, you can't tell it's a wing. It almost just looks like a stick or something, you know? And I got rid of these, like the clips and stuff like that, just to kind of give us more realism, right? Like that, you don't really want to have clips and things like that because it reminds the viewer that those butterflies aren't real, you know what I mean? And even though they know that, right? Because, you know, you can't really do this with real ones, right? But you don't want them to think about that. You know, you want them to just think about the beauty and the art of the piece of work. You don't want them to, you know, break it down on like what's real and what's not real. You know what I mean? It's not about that. It's about what you're looking at. You know, it's about how you feel when you look at it. And that's really why we all do this, you know, is to make people feel a certain way. So that about wraps it up here, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching again. If you guys want to see more stuff like this, definitely leave it in the comments and I will be making it. I'm probably gonna make it regardless, but it would be nice to hear if anybody is enjoying these like behind the scenes videos. I'm probably gonna be doing more vlogs in the future, you know, but I do like my BTS, but definitely gotta get some vlogs in there. But all right, guys, that about wraps it up for me. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.